Most RVs spend far more time parked than actually driving, sitting at a campsite, a driveway, or a remote spot for days at a time, with the engine off and the house battery slowly draining the entire time. A $19 portable solar setup can keep that battery charged during every one of those parked hours, without shore power and without ever starting the engine. There's a number that decides whether this actually keeps pace with your battery's daily draw or falls behind it. How many watts your panel produces compared to how many amp hours your battery bank actually uses in a day. Almost nobody checks that math before buying solar gear, and it's exactly why some people swear by a small panel while others say it did nothing for them. We'll get into that. If you'd rather know these fixes exist before something breaks than after, that's what the Independence Files is for. New one every few days, across the house, the RV, the boat, and emergency setups. A house battery left running fridge, lights, and vent fans while parked typically loses somewhere between 20 and 40 amp hours a day, depending on what's running and how efficient the RV's systems are. Without any charging source, that adds up fast. A battery that starts a weekend trip full can be seriously depleted by day 2 or 3 of dry camping, long before anyone's ready to pack up and leave. Deep cycling a lead acid or a GM battery repeatedly down to low charge levels also shortens its usable lifespan considerably compared to one that stays topped off more consistently. Which means the cost of skipping a charging solution isn't just inconvenience mid-trip. It's a battery that needs replacing years sooner than it otherwise would, adding another cost most owners never connect back to how they've been managing their charge cycles. Most RV owners who avoid this problem simply run a generator periodically to top the battery back up, which brings back the same fuel cost, noise, and maintenance burden that comes with any generator-dependent solution. Exactly the trade-off a lot of people are trying to get away from by camping off-grid in the first place. Here's what changes the entire equation. Unlike driving, where alternator charging only works while the engine runs, a parked RV sitting in direct sun has a completely free, continuous energy source available literally the entire time it's sitting, still doing nothing. That energy goes completely unused on any RV without solar, every single day it's parked. So here's the real question worth asking. If a parked RV is sitting in daylight for 8, 10, 12 hours at a stretch, doing nothing but slowly draining its battery, how much of that daily battery loss could simply be offset by capturing even a fraction of the energy already falling on the roof for free? Think of a solar panel and battery like a bucket with a slow, steady drip filling it from one source while a slightly bigger drain empties it from another. Without the drip, the bucket just empties on its own schedule based on the drain alone. Add even a modest drip, and the bucket empties slower. And if the drip is strong enough to match or exceed the drain, the bucket stops emptying at all, staying topped off indefinitely as long as the sun keeps shining. Mechanically, a solar panel converts sunlight directly into DC electrical current through the photovoltaic effect. Photons striking a semiconductor material knock electrons loose, creating a flow of current proportional to how much light is hitting the panel. A charge controller sits between the panel and the battery, regulating that current so it charges the battery safely without overcharging it once it's full. This isn't new or experimental technology dressed up for RV use. Off-grid cabins and remote research stations have relied on exactly this same photovoltaic charging principle for decades, long before portable solar panels became affordable enough for casual RV use. The core physics, sunlight in, usable current out, hasn't changed at all. What's changed is that panel efficiency has climbed and cost has dropped enough to make a meaningful setup affordable at RV scale rather than requiring an expensive, permanently mounted array. Early photovoltaic systems, dating back to satellite and remote telecommunications applications decades ago, cost so much per watt that solar charging was only justified where running a power line simply wasn't an option at all. The manufacturing scale that eventually brought panel costs down enough for rooftop home solar is the same trend that, years later, made a folding $19 RV panel a realistic purchase rather than a niche industrial expense. Manufacturers of portable RV solar panels publish wattage ratings under standardized test conditions, the same kind of testable specification used to rate any electrical device. That number, combined with a battery's amp-hour capacity and daily draw, is straightforward arithmetic that determines whether a given panel size will actually keep pace with a specific RV's usage. RV owners in boondocking communities who track their own battery state of charge report a consistent split. Those who did the wattage-versus-draw math before buying report their panels genuinely keeping their battery topped off indefinitely, while those who bought based on price alone, without checking that their panel actually matched their daily draw, report exactly the disappointment you'd expect from an undersized system. 3 separate threads, all confirming the same underlying pattern. Decades of off-grid photovoltaic precedent, direct manufacturer wattage specifications, and a consistent real-world split between owners who matched their system correctly and those who didn't. That's not one dramatic claim. It's a pattern that depends entirely on getting one calculation right. It's worth being precise about what varies here. Actual panel output depends heavily on sun angle, cloud cover, panel placement, and season. A rated wattage is a best-case number under ideal conditions, not a guaranteed daily output. What's consistent is the underlying mechanism and the fact that any amount of solar input offsets battery drain to some degree, even on a less-than-ideal day. So if this math is straightforward, why do so many RV owners end up disappointed with a solar setup they bought in good faith? It comes down to how these panels get marketed. Retailers sell wattage as the headline number, the same way they would sell horsepower on an engine. Bigger sounds better, and it's an easy number to put on a box. Almost nobody selling a panel walks a buyer through calculating their specific RV's actual daily amp-hour draw first, because that conversation doesn't fit neatly on a product label. There's a simpler reason underneath that, too. A panel that's slightly undersized for a buyer's needs still works, just not well enough to fully offset their draw. That means it still does something, making it hard for a disappointed buyer to tell whether the product failed or whether the sizing was simply wrong from the start. Return policies and reviews reinforce this confusion further. A buyer whose undersized panel technically adds some charge each day often doesn't return it or leave a clearly negative review. The product isn't broken, it's just mismatched to their needs. That means the sizing problem rarely surfaces publicly the way an outright product failure would. As for what this actually involves, a basic portable solar panel with a built-in charge controller, sized around 50 to 100 watts depending on the specific kit, typically costs around $19 for a compact folding model at the low end of that range. It connects directly to the RV's house battery through the charge controller, positioned in direct sun wherever the RV happens to be parked, angled toward the sun for maximum exposure. The bucket and drip principle applies directly. As long as the panel's output matches or exceeds the battery's daily draw, the battery stays topped off instead of steadily draining, with the charge controller preventing any risk of overcharging once the battery reaches full capacity during peak sun hours. Now, back to the wattage versus draw math from the start. A rough rule of thumb: 100 watts of panel, under good sun, produces somewhere around 30 amp hours a day, enough to offset light to moderate daily use, but not enough to keep pace with a battery bank running a full-size fridge, air conditioning, or heavy appliance use all day. Matching panel size to actual daily draw, not just buying the biggest number on sale, is what determines whether this genuinely solves the problem or just slows it down slightly. There are honest limitations here. Cloudy days, shade from trees or buildings, and short winter daylight hours all reduce actual output well below the rated number. This isn't a guaranteed fixed amount of charge every single day regardless of conditions. It also won't recover a battery that's already deeply discharged quickly. Like most charging solutions, it's built to maintain and slowly build back up, not rapidly refill an empty bank. Panel security and portability introduce a practical trade-off too. A portable panel left outside, unattended at a campsite, carries some theft risk that a permanently mounted rooftop panel doesn't, which is worth factoring into how and where it gets used. Some owners only deploy theirs when someone's actually present at the site. Older or larger battery banks with reduced capacity from age won't hold whatever charge this provides as effectively as a newer, healthy battery. The panel can only add charge. It can't fix a battery that's already lost significant capacity to age. Panel placement also matters more than most first-time buyers expect. A panel left flat on a dashboard or laid on the ground at a poor angle to the sun can lose a significant share of its rated output compared to one properly angled toward the sun's position. The difference between a well-aimed and poorly aimed panel can easily be the gap between a system that keeps pace with daily draw and one that quietly falls behind. This isn't a substitute for shore power or a generator when genuinely heavy loads are involved. It's a way to offset typical daily draw during parked, off-grid stretches. Nothing more and nothing less. Which loops back to where this started. The same wattage versus draw calculation that determines whether solar keeps an RV battery topped off applies identically to a boat battery sitting at a dock or mooring, just with a different daily draw to match against. A parked RV is sitting on free, unused energy every single sunny hour it isn't moving. The only question is whether anything on board is actually set up to catch it. If you've done this math for your own rig, or you're not sure how to figure out your daily draw, drop it in the comments below. I read all of them, and I'll do my best to help you work it out.